So many of you have taken the assignment that was given to you very seriously, and you have sent me your copies of your essay as well as your different general studies paper across to me. So after I had gone through them, I could really understand the high standard of skills that you guys really have. Just that it was unfortunate that you simply couldn't make it to this year's mains, but I'm sure there's just one mains that you need to make it through. And now, after having a look at the different essay papers, I thought I'll make use of this video discussion so as to give an idea to the larger crowd, whoever watches this video, as to what I feel are really good essay skills. So what I'm going to do right now is to take the best essay paper which I have received, and the essay is about the question that has been asked in this year's mains examination in this essay paper. So there's one student, the essay that has been written, I feel this one essay, it captures all the best practices that you can have with respect to essay writing. So just by walking you through this answer sheet, I'll be able to point out to you 10 best reasons as to why I would very favorably reward this particular student's essay sheet. Right? So let's get started so that you can get to understand about all the different 10 reasons why I really feel this paper deserves to get at least 125 in mains for such a kind of an essay that's written. Right? So let's have a look at it. So as you can see on the screen, the topic that has been selected for the essay is the cost of being wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing. So this has been the preferred choice of the question, for which an answer has been written for around 11 pages. Right? And this entire PDF of this writing has been shared in the Telegram channel. So anybody who's interested to know how a good essay is written, so you can simply go through the entire essay, read it at your leisure, appreciate, understand the English, appreciate the sentence construction, appreciate the flow of the essay. It is for all of that why I would probably give 125 marks. It's not for just one aspect or for the other. Right? It's an entire package which is rewarded with 125, 130 marks. So look at the first reason why I feel even the very opening parts of this essay really makes an impact on the reader. So if you can go through the first page, you'll be able to see that the example that has been given by the student, so as to give a leading direction for the entire essay. What has been the example that has been given? It's about the Kurukshetra war. Right? And most of you who have chosen this topic have also given me references from Mahabharata, just that you have given me references from the Draupadi's disrobing scene. Right? When Draupadi is disrobed, how people have been sitting as mute spectators without doing anything. But just think once, such an example doesn't actually capture the entire part of the question. So you would have given me an example of Draupadi being disrobed and people not doing anything. But what about the first half of the question? The first half of the question is cost of being wrong. Right? So that part is actually not captured in your example. But this particular example given here, it captures the scene of the Kurukshetra war where Arjuna is in a dilemma. Right? He is unable to decide how to kill his own relatives who are standing on the other side. It's his own blood, its own kith and kin who are standing on the other side, and Arjuna is now unable to shoot an arrow against them because he feels that it's a wrong act to kill them in battlefield. Right? So because of which he is not acting on anything. He is totally unable to act. And this is where Krishna gives a sermon where he says that not acting here at this particular moment is failing in your duty as a Kshatriya. Right? So whether it's right or wrong, first do your action. Correct? So this kind of an example has been made use of in a very clever way. And by giving this in the first introduction itself, it gives a very good sense about what's going to come in the next few pages. Right? It's a very apt example that sets the direction for the next 9 pages. So that's why the very first advantageous aspect of this essay is that the example is very right. It's not only relevant, but it's also very perfect. It's very right. It captures the entire tone of the question that's in hand. Right? So this is the first best part of this essay. That is, the introduction actually captures the whole theme of the question. It's not selective, it's not partly addressing the demand of the question, but rather this first page itself gives me a clear sense of what's more to come. And the second important reason for favorable rewarding of this essay, it's because of the diversity the essay brings in terms of its examples and references. So there are very interesting references to fiction, there are interesting references to history, and then in the introduction itself you have a reference from mythology. Correct? So when you go through this essay, you'll be able to find that this is an aspirant who really reads books. Correct? It's not somebody who has simply made some template examples and references which can be simply cherry picked and used here and there. So that's not the kind of aspirant who has written this essay. But instead, this is an essay written by a person who has an exposure to reading books. Correct? So in the very introduction, you have a reference from Mahabharata. And as you go on, you have references from literature. You have references from the American literature, To Kill a Mockingbird. Then you have classics like Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, all being referenced and brought in here so as to drive the message that something has to be done instead of simply standing as a bystander. Right? And then you also have examples from history. So I'm sure all of us are familiar with this famous anecdote from Germany, the Third Reich, when Hitler was in power, when people used to simply stand as bystanders when their neighbors used to be dragged onto the streets by the Gestapo. Right? People were just simply staring at them, not doing anything. And finally, when the Gestapo came for them, there was nobody left for stand up for them. Right? So that example was also very creatively made use of to address the demand of the question. So this diversification in terms of examples, this referencing from different walks of life, it's another really appreciable aspect of this particular essay. The third important reason to appreciate this essay is that the length of the sentences are very short. Short sentences makes for easy reading. Whereas just imagine yourself reading Hindu newspapers, editorials. The sentences just keeps going on and on. They are very, very compound. So the sentences, if it's very long, it tires the reader, it exhausts the reader. But short sentences, they convey the intent, they convey the meaning in a very powerful fashion. Right? The examiner finds it easy to move on from one idea to the other when the sentences are shorter in length. And this is exactly why this essay it stands out. Okay, just look at the length of the sentences. You will never find a sentence going beyond the third line or maximum fourth line. Right? Most of the sentences are confined within 2 or 3 lines. It means just around 15 words at the maximum for a sentence. Right? And that's a very, very precise way of conveying your ideas. So that's why this essay really stands out in terms of the ease with which the examiner is able to go through this essay paper. So I just have a look at this particular page. And in this page, you can see, I'll just read it out, just see how the sentences are nicely broken. Complexities associated with inaction are manifold, full stop. We as human beings are gifted enough to be able to traverse through dire difficulties and make a choice, be it from rational, moral, psychological, or emotional point of view, full stop. But astonishingly, a lot of us fail to do so when the situation is most demanding, full stop. Had people acted, things would have been different to an extent, full stop. Looking back at history, one gets to read about the gut-wrenching Holocaust in which Nazi Germany gassed nearly 1 million Jews to death, full stop. Right? So this is what I mean by short sentences. In half a page, there are 5 sentences. So learning this skill of breaking sentences and to bring in as many sentences as possible without losing track of the connect between ideas, it's a very important skill which naturally comes to this aspirant. So this is something to be really, really appreciated. What's next great about this essay? The essay follows what is called as a 2-paragraph format. Right? You look at every page, you will have two paragraphs. You see, there are 2 paragraphs in this page. Moving on to the next page, there are 2 paragraphs. Moving on to the next page, 2 paragraphs, 2 paragraphs again. So what's so great about this 2-paragraph structure? I'll let you know what it is. So just for comparison, I'll show you another answer sheet. So this is also another very good essay that has been written. Just that there was one deficiency which I couldn't simply accept in that essay paper, that it just simply has too many paragraphs in a single page. So what's the problem, sir? What if there are just too many paragraphs? What if I write it in 3-4 paragraphs per page? It gives a sense to the examiner that the aspirant has simply jumped from one idea to the other. There are just frequent jumps that's being made. Not even a single idea has been sufficiently explored. This is the kind of sense as a reader, as an examiner, I get when I see a lot of paragraphs. But at the same time, if there isn't 2 paragraphs, let's say a candidate just writes 1 paragraph per page, that's also detrimental because that gives a sense to the examiner that there is a sense of monotony. There is no diversification. Right? Just one idea has been taken and it has been beaten around the bush so much that there is no other idea that has been brought in the essay. So if you write just 1 paragraph a page, it gives a sense that there is no diversification. But if you write too many paragraphs a page, it gives a sense of shallowness of the content. So the optimum balance is to stick to two paragraphs per page, and the essay nails in that regard as well. The next best part of this essay is that the quotes that are used in this essay are so organic. It just fits in. It just fits in so natural to the flow of this essay. Many a times I've noticed this peculiar problem with a lot of aspirants, that none of the quotes that they use in their essays are inspired in their own lives. They're not quotes that has impacted them in their day-to-day life, but rather these are quotes that they have simply copied from some toppers' answer sheets. These could be the quotes that they have simply borrowed from toppers' material that they have prepared for their success in this exam. So there is a lack of originality when it comes to the quotations that aspirants have. And the cost of this lack of originality is that when you just randomly borrow a topper's quote and you try to squeeze it somewhere in your essay, it just doesn't fit into this essay, right? But the quotes that this aspirant has used, so since this essay is all about taking an action, not thinking too much about its consequences, right? So look at the quote that the aspirant has used. Doubt kills more dreams than failures ever will, right? It in fact even rhymes as well. So it adds a poetic touch to it. And then there's another quote. I choose a road less traveled, and that has made all the difference, right? So these are quotes which are not artificially squeezed in so as to embellish this essay, but rather these are quotes which really provides a sense of timing. It provides a connect to the context in which this entire essay has been written, right? So that's why these quotes that are used in this essay really elevates the experience of the reader when the reader reads this particular essay. Another important reason why this essay stands out is the essay simply doesn't go in one direction alone, because it's a very natural tendency. When you see a quote, you have to first believe in the quote. You have to be very convinced about the correctness of the quote, and it's only when you are convinced, you start brainstorming, you start coming up with a lot of ideas, right? And it so happens that mostly when you address these kind of essays, your essay just tends to travel in a single direction, right? So you cannot simply write that life is a bed of roses. And if you really believe in that, and if you keep on writing in this particular direction, the examiner, who is really an old man, experienced man, who would have seen the darker shades of life, he wouldn't really believe that everything is so rosy and utopian. Definitely there is another side. Definitely there is an alternative argument to all these topics, to all these philosophies, right? So that is the same nature of this particular abstract idea as well, right? It's not that being wrong may always be better than not doing anything. There can be another scenario where it's better to not do anything, because being wrong can be very costly, right? So that is what this aspirant addresses in page number 9. So towards the final concluding areas of this essay, the aspirant makes a transition. The aspirant takes a U-turn. The aspirant also brings to the notice of the examiner that though I take a particular stand and I say that it's better to act rather than to not act, but there are moments when an actions can prove to be extremely costly, that there might not be another opportunity to rebound back. And that's exactly what the aspirant addresses towards the end of this essay, right? So this transition is very essential. This transition is essential. This change of direction is essential so that the examiner doesn't suspect your integrity. If you do not provide this transition, the examiner starts questioning, is this aspirant unaware of the other side of this argument? Does the aspirant not know that not always not acting is wrong? There could be moments when being silent and not acting can also be right. Does the aspirant not know about this particular direction at all? These are the doubts that the examiner starts getting in his mind, right? So that's why you prevent these doubts from emerging in his mind by yourself admitting that yes, there is also another side to the story, right? And that's what she's doing. When the aspirant has written this essay, she's just trying to bring in this dimension in the last 2 pages towards the end of this essay, right? So that's a very a very mature thought process, which exhibits to the examiner about your awareness of the other side, but still your need to take a stand and to toe the demand of the question largely, right? So that sets the examiner at rest. That makes the examiner assured that he is dealing with a mature writer. So in that way as well, this essay addresses and it stands out. Do English skills matter for civil service examination? Not really. But do English skills matter when it comes to essay paper? Largely. If you have seen your seniors, toppers make it into the rank list without great English skills, it's because of general studies paper, it's because of their command or optional paper, but definitely they would not have made it because of marks in essay paper despite not having good English skills. So English skills do make an impact when it comes to essay paper because it's all about wordplay. It's about how creatively you can tailor words, how can you jumble and put the right words in the right context and convey the meaning in a very interesting fashion than others, because it's after all the experience, right? You touch the heart of the examiner in essay paper, unlike your GS where you touch the mind of the examiner, right? And just look at this box that I have marked here. There's a sentence: the burden of inaction, contrary to one's expectation, is quite heavy to bear. It's a very interesting way in which this idea has been packaged and put across, right? If I were to write this, I would rather write, we expect that inaction may not be very burdensome for us, but on the contrary, such inactions can be very painful in the longer run to think and bear, right? So such long sentence has been very nicely, very impactfully, powerfully presented as the burden of inaction, contrary to one's expectation, is quite heavy to bear, right? A very, very creative usage of the language, I should say, right? So this is an ability which will not go unnoticed when an examiner goes through your essay paper, right? And not only that, there are many other occasions where the command over language is at display here. Let's say the rhetorical question which is being asked here. This brings us to yet another question at the end: is inaction always wrong, or is it just as wrong as it is right? So such kind of rhetorical questions where you know the answer, where the examiner can also guess at what the answer is about to be, and then you still give the answer, right? So asking such rhetorical questions is also another indication of good command over English, right? So learn how to do that. It only comes with reading such good literature. It comes by being inspired from these kind of toppers, these kind of essay answer sheets, and then thinking, what can I possibly do to enhance my writing skills, right? So this is definitely another reason, the command over the language, why this essay has to be rewarded favorably. A very, very appreciable aspect that each one of you should notice in this essay is that the ideas of every paragraph that's going to just start, it seems to be a continuum of the previous paragraph, right? So just look at this image that is there before you. This is page number 5. So the second paragraph of page number 5, it says, they say one who doesn't learn from history, and she just continues and she writes for half a page, right? Now look at the successive paragraph. So look at the way it starts. It starts with in this regard. So it means that the upcoming content of this paragraph is basically a derivation of the previous paragraph. So it puts the examiner at ease. It makes me assured that there is no deviance. It makes me assured that the successive ideas are born out of the preceding paragraph. So if they are born out of the preceding paragraph, there should be some similarity in the content. So it makes me doubly reassured that as a reader, I feel there isn't a deviance, there isn't a straying away from the core demand of the topic. And look at the next paragraph as well. Next paragraph, it says, this emphasizes on the fact. So it means that what is this? This is something of to do with the previous paragraph, right? And look at this. Thus one notes that everything boils down to choices. It means that, what do you mean by thus one notes? It is something to be derived out of the previous paragraph, right? It's a very great skill. It's a skill that actually gives an impression to the examiner that every idea that has been written one after the other, it's highly connected and coherent, right? So this is something that each one of you should notice and try to imbibe in the way you write and deliver your content. And lastly, to summarize it all, the essay has a great structure. It's just flowing, right? And just think about the structure in the 11 pages. What has the aspirant attempted to do? The aspirant has just tried to give a direction to the flow in the 11 pages in the very first page, right? So the context has been clarified with the help of Mahabharata example in the first page. And after that, the different parts of the question has been dissected, right? So is it really wrong to choose an action of our own choosing? So that part has been dissected and some examples have been given. The cost of not doing anything has been given in the form of this German example, right? So every different part of the question has been dissected, and the dissected ideas are substantiated with examples, with illustrations, with references from literature, right? And once that dissection and supporting with examples has been done, and even the ideas as they move on from one page to the other, the transition becomes so smooth. It's so seamless for a reader when the reader goes from one page to the other, right? And as I told you, it's because of usage of those transition words, like in this regard, thus the above discussion shows that, right? When the transition also becomes smooth, it becomes a page turner experience for the reader. I don't feel burdened having to go through this 10 pages. It just feels as if it's a walk in the park. It's so light on the reader, right? So all those literary skills are brought in so as to finally achieve the outcome of enhancing the readability of the content to the reader, right? And the conclusion can be slightly better than what the conclusion has been written here, but still it makes for a good closure to this entire discussion, right? So these are the 10 different ways how this essay has turned out to be a very, very interesting read for me personally, and why I would really favorably reward this particular type of an essay, right? The only drawback I find in this essay is that the underlining is just too extensive, right? So the aspirant, I think, needs to be given an idea about what to be underlined and what's not to be underlined, correct? So there has been just too much of underlining, which has to be avoided. Okay, in my opinion, there should only be 1 or 2 lines underlined per paragraph, not every single line. Just one line or one core idea, not a single word, but a core idea or a core theme should be underlined, right? And I'll show you here an example from another aspirant who has also written a beautiful essay. So this is something that this aspirant can learn from the other aspirant, right? As to the nature of underlining that has been employed by the other aspirant. So that is the right way of underlining, and not what has been done in this particular paper, right? So apart from that, this is one essay which has really given me a lot of happiness when I went through this particular essay. So that's the ultimate litmus test of how much marks you would be getting. So for an essay like this, I would give a benchmark score of around 120, right? So 120 would be the benchmark score for this particular essay, and for all others who have submitted your essays, your essay has been indexed to this quality of this particular essay. So if you have got only 100 marks, it means that in some areas your essay might be deficient considering this particular benchmark essay. All right.